G'day and welcome to part 2 of MedTech Trailblazers with Hanson Gifford, sailor, pilot and brilliant serial MedTech entrepreneur. In this episode, we'll explore more of the Foundry's successes since its inception in 1998, as well as Hanson's personal views about teamwork, investing, digital health and the outlook for our MedTech world. So the Foundry has been remarkably successful. What do you think the keys to its success have been, or your success?
Well, when people ask me that, the first thing I think of is the teams that have led those companies, like yourself and the team at 12 and Ardian, but also just every other company. You know, the Foundry gets these things going and we stay involved, but for most of the lifetime of the company, it's the team that makes it happen. But in general, I like the way Stacy Ingzing Seng described it to me the other day, that the 3 key things she looks for in a new company are a really great new idea, a real important solution to a key clinical need, or the technology, a big market opportunity, being able to have a real impact clinically and economically. So for her, that's total available market, or TAM. And then as I said, the team. So tech, TAM, and team. If you have those 3, then the odds of success go way up.
I like it a lot. But I'm going to go back. One of the things that you guys taught me was to identify the big risk and face it. It's not something that everyone does. So what did you mean by that? It's a commonplace to talk about, what keeps you up at night. And I think it's actually true. Earlier on in my career, I would lie awake and worry about things at night, and then come in the next day and focus on everything but that. And so actually learning to think about, what I was really worried about, and then come in the next day and just share that with the group and say, okay, how are we going to address that? And I think, frankly, my partners are better at that and have taught me that. But it's confronted.
Alan, Mark, others, it's confronting the biggest challenges. As Casey McGlynn taught me, he said, building startup companies is all about reducing risk and adding value. And reducing risk doesn't mean doing all of the peripheral aspects of the business. You'll get to those. It's what are the real reasons why this isn't going to work, and addressing those.
Knock them out.
Head on.
Yeah.
As soon as possible.
And by doing that, you're creating value, but you've also had a focus on demonstrating and creating value. Sometimes that might be revenue, but in a lot of instances it isn't. Could you explain that a little bit?
Well, nowadays for startup medical device companies, the real value is created, in most cases, by randomized clinical trials. Really big, really well run, really carefully executed clinical trials that collect the data that demonstrate that in a prospective group your idea really works. Used to be you could put something in a patient and it worked, you could say, great, this works. And now you put something in a patient and it works, and they say, okay, it worked in one patient, but that doesn't mean anything. So running good clinical trials, wherever that is in the world that you can find the best clinicians to execute as well as possible, as quickly as possible.
And that's key, again, wherever it is in the world, it's all about the quality and quality of the study. Yep.
Yes.
Yeah, good stuff. So teams are people. In our discussion, we spoke about the differences between teams and the development of teams in startups versus in larger companies. How do you see that difference?
Well, there's no room in a startup for people who aren't effective team players. There used to be this dichotomy between, do we take the brilliant technical genius, or do we take the person who works well with others? And the fact is, in a startup, nearly everybody needs to be both.
Yeah.
Yeah.
And it's hard to compromise on that. And I think in the startup medical device world, first of all, these are really fulfilling, challenging jobs, which engage, all of our wits and energy to execute appropriately in all the different roles. And the companies typically have a life cycle where employees are there 3, 4, 5, 6 years. And so any one company may not last forever, but collectively, the medical device startup industry here in the Bay Area is a very secure employer. And what's better is that as each new company is formed, I think everybody says, who did I really enjoy working with? Who was really just a great team member in the last company? And you bring them into the next one. And so there's this self-selecting process that allows us over time to work with so many great people over and over again. And it's just, that makes it all the more fun.
I love that. I mean, I've worked in this industry for a long time, but never thought of it that way. I've always tried to explain to others that the risk of working in a smaller company is no greater than that of working in a larger organization. And you just explained why. For that particular company, there might be risk. But yeah, it is a continuum. You are moving from one to the next to the next, if you're fortunate enough to be drug along.
Yeah, if you get drug along, if you put your heart and soul into it and do a great job, that will get recognized, and you will easily find a next job, even in tough situations. I'm confident of that.
Good.
And when the Foundry has a company that doesn't work out, that's when we go into overdrive to make sure that each of our team members finds a great new opportunity.
Yeah, I can.
With one of our companies or elsewhere, just because that's what's most important to us. And it pays off in that when we're looking to start a new company, we've been very fortunate to attract great people back.
Yeah, right. So that's again, doing the right thing pays off, right? The loyalty,
really
looking after your folks pays off in the long term. So one of the things we spoke about is you're seeing a tendency to actually the industry favoring startups over large companies. Why? Why is that?
So big companies, face the challenges of meeting quarterly earnings calls, and every single dollar they spend on R&D comes right out of their bottom line. And so there are incentives for them to acquire new products rather than creating them. It's also hard to create the right incentives for advanced R&D projects within big companies. There's all sorts of pressures that make it really hard to allow people to work on really new things that don't fit in a timeline or a budget necessarily.
Yeah, and I think so. It's structural, right? We both worked in big companies. I've spent a lot of time recently with larger companies. The folks in there are just as smart, just as committed, just as capable.
Yeah, just as creative, and they could start great new companies if that was what they focused on. But fortunately for us, there's plenty of room for startups to fill that gap for them.
Absolutely, which we hope. Let's keep it going for a while.
Yeah.
I'm gonna slightly go off here a little bit, but we're seeing a resurgence here of IPOs. So we now have, traditionally the exits for startups have been acquisitions. We're now seeing other viable pathways. We've had a remarkable run, I think 4 years now, of some really successful IPOs.
Some hugely successful multi-billion-dollar IPOs, which really changed the game for startups as they look at their horizon. It isn't just about working to the point where you can get bought for $200 or $300 million.
maybe the acquisition is for much more, or maybe you go ahead and drive into commercialization and are worth 10 times that. So that is a really fantastic opportunity for the industry.
And you say, well, here's what I'm seeing, and see if it's similar. I'm seeing now the large crossovers and the sort of the folks that normally come in a little bit later are coming in a bit earlier so they can drive the companies to an IPO. That's causing Lightstone and the others, just in, again, a general statement, to be coming in a little bit earlier. We're starting right at the very beginning now to see some companies that were no longer investing in the seed and A's coming back. Are you seeing that?
Some of that. There's a range of new investors investing early, whether it's much more aggressive angel investors, some VCs, some international investors, some strategics getting involved in new companies from very early stages. But those IPOs we were just talking about really typically take hundreds of millions of dollars to build that commercial success, and the fact that the crossovers are coming in earlier and being willing to fund those companies, knowing that they can become multi-billion-dollar companies, is what's really transformed the outlook for your typical startup.
Yeah, I'm starting to feel rosy about the future of our industry. You agree?
I think we're in a good moment, and let's here's hoping it keeps going.
I always thought this is interesting. I would say that both Mark, team, and yourself are very strong intellectually. You're very creative types, and so you're very strong individually as well. Yet you really do believe in the collective wisdom of teams or of groups. Can you explain that a little bit?
Well, as you're trying to generate new ideas, and I've spent a lot of time on this, but also a lot of time thinking about the process of generating new ideas. And certainly, the beginnings of an idea, or even a reasonably fully fledged idea, can be developed by one person. But that is unlikely to be the very best idea.
Yeah. And
that optimization can only happen through dialogue. The Greeks figured it out 3,000 years ago. Getting other people's input is really important. And it is astonishing how rarely that happens effectively. I can't tell you how many times I go into a meeting with half a dozen people, whether it's investors or whatever, and within 2 minutes you can tell that there's one person that they're really waiting to hear his or her answer, and they're all going to fall in line. And I've tried very hard to get into those brainstorming situations where there are no leaders, and everyone's voice is heard, everyone is respected, and we can challenge each other's ideas without threatening each other. When somebody has an idea, that's actually a very self-actualizing moment, very, very precious. And when somebody immediately says, "Oh, that's a stupid idea," the immediate inclination is to be defensive about it.
Yeah.
And to get everybody to calm down and realize that this is just really about coming up with the right ideas, and so that we can figure out where there might be limitations to an idea and overcome those as a group. Then the ideas can build on each other so quickly, and you can have just the most fun in a brainstorming session when that group dynamic is created.
Yeah, that's what I want. This is a big one. Really want people to have a listen to this, because I experienced this one, particularly at I'd say at 12 when I came in there, because every Thursday. So this combines two things that I think the Foundry is parts of your success. One is what you just described, the collective wisdom of a group of disparate, diverse people, and the other is rapid prototyping. Try and learn. I was going to say try and fail, but it's really try and learn. And so I remember the experience that I had of coming in on a Thursday and watching you guys. I think this was before I came on, and we had physicians, we had Jim Fan, we had the whole team at that point was 5 people plus you, plus some of the other Foundry folks.
Yeah.
And you were debating and brainstorming the designs, and everyone had an equal voice. Do you remember that?
Absolutely. No, people have heard me say, we had some great engineers. John Morris works with you, Matt McLean, Jeff Granger, who's the patent attorney.
Yeah. Kim.
But we also had Kim Meng Sung, who, would feel free to tell me my ideas were crazy. And then I knew that this is working. And we ended up with a design that I would never have thought of. No one person would have thought of.
Yeah.
We kept trying, iterating, learning. All we knew was that we wanted to create a transcatheter mitral replacement valve. And it didn't matter whether it was my idea or Kimmy's idea or your idea or the collective idea. And so that process is really fun. And we've done it a few more times since then.
And I think that folks looking from the outside in think that these ideas are, and in a lot of instances are, but generated by yourself, by Mark, by Kara, by everyone else. It is the collective wisdom. And I'm just again hearing it in this conversation, combined with that rapid prototyping, and just get it in there. But with a transcatheter mitral valve, from concept to first human in less than 3 years, was pretty remarkable. But it was driven through that process.
Right. I mean, it's in the first year, we probably went through 40 different designs. We'd brainstorm on a Thursday, prototype until the next week, and then try it in a cadaver or an animal or a benchtop model and see what we learned and brainstorm again. And that rapid, iterative brainstorming process was truly magical.
Combined with the collective wisdom of the team.
Yes.
Yep, I think that's important.
Yeah.
So you've now entered the realm of the venture capitalist. Why?
Yeah, which used to think it was going over to the dark side. But, without, what's the line from the Apollo 13? If there's no bucks, there's no Buck Rogers. So you need the money to succeed. And frankly, that's the reason I became a venture partner at Lightstone, was that I wanted to do everything I could to help them raise some money so they could in turn fund my projects and other projects like it. But it is a fascinating challenge to identify successful new businesses and to help grow them from a little more of a distance when you're not directly involved, but supporting it in every way you can. And as we've said, we can only do one company a year, more or less. And there are a lot of other great ideas out there, and just to have the chance to participate in those stories as well is a lot of fun.
Yeah, and I've had the good fortune to be involved with a couple of venture firms, and I have learned a lot from just listening and watching their meetings. What have you learned? What would you do differently now as an entrepreneur?
Well, it does help you to understand what they're looking for, which is, again, variations on the tech team TAM thing. But also just how to present, to really listen. A lot of entrepreneurs come and they have their story, and you ask them questions, challenge them a little, and they say, no, this is the answer. And they, so really trying to address their concerns, because that's part of what a VC is looking for, is not just, is this idea perfectly formed and is it going to succeed, but is this someone who listens, who's going to collaborate and evolve to build a very successful business?
Yeah, can they bring not only their team along, but their investors along for the ride, right?
So I think that's maybe a skill I didn't have as much in the early days that I would try to emphasize now.
So it sounds like you're enjoying the experience. Why? What is it about it?
I think one of the fundamentals is that I have a great set of partners who are really collaborative and thoughtful and bring insights, and we have fun together. And that is, I think, rare in the venture industry. And were it not that way, I might not be as excited to spend that additional time making investments as a VC. But being able to work with the partners, I feel like it's an honor and a privilege and a whole lot of fun.
It's the importance of working with a great team, right? Everyone wants to work with a team. Keeps
coming back to that, doesn't it?
Yeah. So in 2015, you were very bullish on consumerization of medtech or of medicine and digital health in particular. Where are you still there? That's 6 years later. What are your thoughts?
I am. You know, one of the things that I feel like I've seen over time is that new buzzwords come along and everybody jumps on board and they all lose their money and those companies all fail. And then 10 years later, those companies are succeeding, or new companies in that same space are succeeding. It goes back to, people spent tons of money on lasers in the 50s, not very successfully. 10, 20, 30 years later, there's lasers in everything. In the 90s, it was nanotechnology. Okay, well, nanotechnology is real now, but it wasn't then. Stem cells, huge push in the early 2000s, and now it's becoming real. And the fusion of digital technologies and medicine started 10, 15 years ago, and now we're really starting to see the fruits of that. So, yeah, I think it really is going to change healthcare, making it much more efficient, much more responsive to patients' actual needs, and really helping patients.
Is it because it just does take that long for a field or an idea to mature, or are there enabling technologies that come along that actually allow that acceleration?
Yeah, enabling technologies, identifying the success factors. I think with digital health, one of the key factors is who's going to pay, and how is this really going to impact patients in a cost-effective way, and we're figuring that out.
Yeah, the business models are coming together, and the tough times that we're still going through, but started last year with COVID, have absolutely accelerated the acceptance of some digital health. Do you see that having is that going to have a material impact?
I think that caused a step change, and I don't think there's any going back.
Yeah.
I think payers, as well as doctors, have realized that they can accomplish a lot with a video visit, rather than making somebody drive across town and sit in a waiting room reading highlights for half an hour before they have 5 minutes with the doctor. So that's just makes life much more effective for everybody.
So a personal question. Almost 40 years in this industry. What keeps you going?
It's fun. That's it. The mental challenges. Certainly we talked about sailing, and is sailing fun? Absolutely, and so on. But the challenges, the experience of working with people to create a new company are just really self-actualizing. And as long as I can do it, I'm happy to do so.
I loved what you said the other day. Said some people love playing golf.
Yeah.
I love starting things. Yeah. I love doing new things.
Yeah.
This is your golf. It's your profession and your hobby and your life.
Well, I can look to mentors like Tom Fogarty, who at age 87 is still coming in here saying, what can we start today? And he could do anything, right? And this is what he chooses to do. And I think there's a reason that if we're fortunate enough to have this opportunity, we should take it.
Looking back over those almost 40 years, what's a lesson or two for a young entrepreneur starting today?
Be bold and trust yourself, and look for a really big opportunity, and then work with others to make that opportunity even bigger, even better.
Yeah, perfect.
Simple as that.
It is funny. I'm trying to, we've known each other for a long time now. I'm starting to realize where a lot of my principles have come from from this conversation.
I'm just passing on the collective wisdom of everyone else. Standing on the shoulders of giants, as we've talked, like Tom Fogarty and Alan Will and John Simpson.
So what other trends are you seeing out there? What else is there? So we got digital, we got the consumerization of medicine. What else?
I think there are some different threads that are perennials, driving things to being less invasive, and we are seeing the culmination of that in several non-invasive technologies, wearable neurostimulators and so on that really do impact physiology. I think that drug delivery and drug device combinations can be very effective and minimize side effects. So those more of those to come. And what else?
We still got the big ones, right? We still haven't solved heart failure. We haven't solved chronic kidney disease. We haven't solved diabetes.
Exactly.
I know there are a lot of remarkable technologies, but we've still got a way to go.
There are still some, atrial fibrillation.
Yeah.
There is something better than ablation out there.
Yeah.
Waiting for someone to find it.
Yeah, there's a lot of work still there. So where I was going to go, we still have some of the fundamentals, some of the blocking and tackling to do.
Yeah, so think about it this way, Andrew. We know so much now about any given disease. And we look back 30 years ago and realize that they just missed so many things, that they just didn't understand it at all.
Yeah.
But 30 years ago, they knew so much, and so much more than they had known 30 years before that. So if you look ahead 30 years, to assume that they're not going to look back on us now and say, boy, they were archaic. We know so much more now. It's an endless frontier.
Yeah.
It's not like, America, where we reached the West Coast and ran out of land. It goes on forever. And there are an infinity of great ideas, and we just have to find them.
Thank you for joining us on MedTech Trailblazers. We hope you enjoyed getting to know Hanson and to walk away just a little more appreciative of the impact he's had on our industry. As always, we hope you'll like our content and share it with your colleagues on social media or otherwise. I want to leave you with my usual parting thoughts from Hannibal of Carthage that should resonate with all of us trying to make a difference for patients worldwide. And that is, I will either find a way or make one. Cheers.